And for more now, let's bring in CBS News national security correspondent David Martin. He's at the Pentagon. David, Defense Secretary Mattis said he has no evidence yet to link the Assad regime to the chemical attack. Is concrete evidence a prerequisite for the administration's response?
Well, you certainly need to make a convincing case. You don't necessarily need a smoking gun. The last time that the U.S. struck Syria for the use of chemical weapons, U.S. intelligence had not come up with a smoking gun. They had come up with a very convincing circumstantial case, one that victims on the ground were experiencing the symptoms that are consistent with being attacked by a nerve agent, and two, there was a Syrian airplane exactly over that area at the same time that those victims started showing up on social media with the convulsions and foaming at the mouth that goes with nerve agent. Now, in this past incident, which occurred over the weekend, the social media shows what U.S. intelligence says are symptoms consistent mostly with chlorine, although there are some people in those pictures who appear to be having a reaction more consistent with nerve agent. Now, that I think is why the Secretary of Defense can say, I believe there was a chemical attack, simply looking at the pictures and having experts tell you that those symptoms are consistent with chlorine gas.
Well, David, I'm just curious because the French president says he has proof the Assad regime is responsible. What additional evidence do you think he has? And by the way, how closely are the two countries working together in their response here?
Well, I'm sure that they are sharing intelligence, and it simply may be that the two countries just have different levels of proof. One country may consider a volume of circumstantial evidence proof. Another country may say that's circumstantial, but it's not a smoking gun.
Right.
And just when you look at the pictures and you have experts tell you, yeah, that looks like people suffering from chlorine gas, that alone does not say who did it. Chlorine is an industrial agent, and it's conceivable that the rebels who were fighting in there could have gotten their hands on chlorine and could have used it. If you can get solid evidence that it was sarin or some other nerve agent, then that points a much more accusing finger at the regime, since it is known that they once had sarin, and it is known that they once used sarin a year ago farther north in Syria.
Indeed, that previous chemical attack was confirmed. Now, David, Secretary Mattis was also asked about his concerns in taking action in Syria. Here's what he said.
There's a tactical concern, ma'am, that innocent people, we don't add to any civilian deaths and do everything humanly possible to avoid that. We're trying to stop the murder of innocent people. But on a strategic level, it's how do we keep this from escalating out of control?
David, what is he referring to when he says escalating out of control?
Well, he's referring to the Russian presence in Syria and the Russian threat that it will attempt to shoot down any missiles that the U.S. Fires at Syria, and not only attempt to shoot down missiles, but it will go after the ships or aircraft that launch those missiles. Now, most experts I've talked to don't believe Russia can shoot down many of those missiles, and don't believe Russia has the capability to go far out, like 600 miles out into the Mediterranean, to go after a ship or an aircraft that might have launched those missiles. But you have to take the Russian head of the army at his word, and that's who made that original threat, the chief of the Russian General Staff. So you have to take that into consideration, and I think that the main way that they will do that is to target only facilities, if they launch a strike, target only facilities that belong to the Syrian military and stay away from all of the installations where they know Russians are. Now, the problem with that is that there are a lot of Russians in that country, and the U.S. doesn't know where every last one of them is. And so if there is an advisor in some Syrian military facility that is a target, and the target's hit and the Russian is killed,
right,
it would be inadvertent on the part of the United States, but I'm not sure that would cut much ice with the Russians.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Syria for a moment. Are Syrian forces taking President Trump's promise of a strike seriously? Are they preparing for it? What sort of shape are the Syrian armed forces in at this stage?
Well, they're preparing for it in the sense that they are dispersing their forces. They're taking forces out of assembly points where one weapon could destroy a lot of equipment, and moving it around so that you don't lose as many pieces of equipment in simply to one missile. And one thing they're doing is putting aircraft at the Damascus civilian airport, no doubt on the theory that the U.S. will not attack a civilian facility.
Well, David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you.
Sure thing.